we've got several sub-examples between example 4 and example 5. I kind of want to get to example 5, but I also know I want to give you back a test today. So we will see where we're going. I'll be handing it back periodically while you guys are doing some practice, okay, on these. And the reason I'm doing practice is a lot of times when folks get here and do these, they just go to their calculator. I expect to see the algebra, okay, on this test. Matter of fact, if you don't have algebra support, it's going to be pretty ugly, the value I will give you. Each of the problems that we're getting ready to for this test, that's, by the way, the test has got 7 problems, 7 questions on it. Each question's about 8 points, 6 to 8 points. One of them's 15 points, okay? So just keep in mind the breakdown of that. We will, yeah, thanks. You got to collect. Can I grab it and then dump it in for you? I do have some stuff, okay, for, yeah, if you would. The change challenge stuff. Okay, I know we're light, and that's okay because we should actually finish at the end, but I'm going to send out a reminder for you all tomorrow. We'll pass around the collection cup today and get that for you, the change challenge. I can't believe they got $70 in a couple other classes, I think, already. That's like $3 per head right now if we're going to beat them, okay? So just keep that in mind. I'm going to contribute my $3, you know, as well, or $6, maybe 10, you know, just push it up. But just make sure, you know, $3 to $5, change challenge, let's get it done, let's just see what we can do, because, you know, it's those other math classes, they're way over there. Pashman and Peterson, the P's are winning it all for change challenge. Okay, so first of all, when we're looking at zeros, possible, I take 8 and I take 1 and I think, hey, I got to think about those possibles. I got 8 and 1 and I divide 8 by 1 and these are all my possibles. That's it. Now, am I checking my GC to ensure I'm going to be smart about it? I'm not going to check every one, but if I didn't have my graphing calculator, I could use remainder theorem, because if it's actually going to, well, the idea of a remainder theorem, because if it's actually going to be a factor, when I pop it in for x, you know, to the 5th power, I put 1 to the 5th power or negative 1 to the 5th power, and I pop those in to evaluate. If it comes out to be 0, if I didn't have my calculator, I could quickly check and then just start doing it, okay? Because if it comes out as 0, it is an actual factor of the polynomial. Well, when I looked at my graphing calculator, I'm going to come up with some values, and my first one was 1, okay? And as I step through, I'm able to realize that, well, you know, drop the 1 down, multiply it by 1, add -3, I get -2, drop it down, get -2, got -7, drop it down, it's -7, I add -7.5, get -2, and I've got this going on here, and I add -2 and -6 together, get -8, and gosh, it's 0. Hey, that worked out. But remember, when you're setting these up, the biggest concern I have for you, descending order. And people are like, gosh, there must be something. He's pointing that a lot. There's been a couple questions when people have gone through the assignments that they've been jumbled, and people haven't been careful. They've just been flying right through, getting the synthetic, moving on to the next one, but they're wrong because they flip-flopped orders. Make sure you're careful about the order you're putting things in. Okay, pay attention. That's significant details that you've got to check for yourself. The next one, when I went through and I checked my calculator, I saw a -2. I remember when I say check the calculator, I put the graph in y equals 1 or y2, and I evaluate the graph by looking at the picture and go, okay, these are my zeros that are on that ±1, ±2, ±4, ±8. Okay. Now after the first 2 I get in there, I'll have 3 left. Okay, and after the first 3, I can start factoring it if it's factorable. Okay, to make my life easier. So I am also, you know, in the idea, I saw 4 as well when I checked that out with my calculator. So now drop the 1. So I got -1 times 2. That's going to be -2. So I got -4. -4 times -2. I got 8. I got 1. -2 again. Okay. So I'm getting myself to a -4. Now -2 times -4 is +8. And I got my 0. And I just continue the onslaught of breaking this down. So remember, this is x minus 1, x plus 2, x minus 4 is my factors. And I drop the 1. Multiply, I have 4, I get 0. I got 0 again, I get 1. I got 4, I get 0. So now I've got x squared plus 1, okay, is one of my final factors. Well, x squared plus 1, you know, when I'm talking about my factors going across here, everything I've set up is not working now. So I've got my function. Right now I've got x minus 1 times x plus 2 times x minus 4 times x squared plus 1. But now I haven't broken it all the way down because remember previously to this section, I wasn't working with imaginary numbers, okay? But now I am. So I can break it down further and talk about this as my binomial here, x minus I, x plus I, because I can break x squared plus 1 into x minus I and x plus I if I factor those out. And so my actual factors, hey, cool, did pop up. My actual factors will be x for zeros are 1, negative 2, 4, and plus or minus I. I'll pop that up there for y'all as we go through. Now, some folks really like this stuff. Other folks, as we're breaking apart, they're like, oh, boom, really? Do we have to do this? And I'd be pretty open about the fact that that test that we have on this material is very, very heavy in the factor area. I mean, we will factor on that test. Okay, you've got to make sure you're careful because it's really easy because they're multi-step problems. It's really easy to make a sign error and then mess up the remainder of the problem. Okay, I'll follow that through as an instructor as I'm grading. This test takes a long time to grade just because of that. Because if that's the one mistake you made, I'll hunt it down and find it for you so you know where it's at. But the more practice we get with it, the better it will be. So now today we've got a lot of practice problems. What I'd like you to do as you guys are working on this, I found that I was doing a couple of these during lunch when I was talking to some folks, you know, just to remind myself what we're doing. I'm just asking you to find zeros, but make sure you show your work as you do it. Just don't say, well, you know, the 0 is this. I'm looking at multiplicity. I'm looking at bounce and stuff too, maybe. I mean, I've got a multiplicity here. I know the zeros here are 0 and negative 5. Okay, but show what's going on. If it's already factored, great. If you got to factor out, show the actual factors you come up with, and then show using that zero product rule what your zeros are. Okay, zero product rule requires you to take your factors and set them equal to 0 and solve. Okay, so in this first one, although I know it's 0 and negative 5, I want to see. Okay, so x is 0 and negative 5, my zeros, okay, as I go through. So that's the type of stuff I'm looking for. And some people go, really, I just already know it. But sometimes we've got to slow ourselves down to actually explain what you know. Okay, so make sure you're careful about that when you're going through these. And while you guys are doing these, I'm going to pop up the answers every like minute or so, 2 minutes it takes to do these. I'm going to pass back that test. Zach, Maddie, Claire. Bless you. check with your row partners as you're going through. Check it out, see what they're doing, see how you're getting that done. That wasn't anything. That was just I hope so. Jeez. You're not. Yeah, you're not. Okay, so 2, if I'm factoring this, I got x minus 3, x minus 2. If I'm factoring, then zero product rule would require that I talk about the fact so those are my zeros, whether I use them as lifts or anything else. And then now I've got some people in step and our 3 going on here. I'm looking at this and I got some people who say, hey, Bloom, it's not factorable. And I'm like, well, you know, those imaginary values are on display now. So I got the difference of 2 squares, x minus 2i, x plus 2i, to actually get this going on. And then my zeros are plus or minus 2i when I'm done. Okay, now if I show those and I say, well, you didn't do zero product, but I'm okay with that, but I also like to see these. I really do like seeing this, that people made those considerations, because a lot of times I've had folks not do this and then make little errors and they get frustrated with themselves, and it's like, you know, it's just slowing down a little bit and making sure we're comfortable. But remember, these things will happen, you know, when I've got an x squared plus a number, you got to consider that difference of 2 squares with I, okay, as we're going through. Check out 4. 4 is kind of extensive. It's kind of fun too. I like that one. I'll give you some more time before I start showing that one. There she is. Let's see. Jess. Thank you. Molly. Car. Where's Megan? Oh, that's right on top of you. That's why I couldn't find you. Yeah, throw your stuff right off your desk. Okay, so let's look at this one. I'm going to take out an x, and I have x to the 4th minus x. Now, I've got that as x squared minus 1. Yeah, you catch me sometimes. I've got x squared minus 1 and x squared plus 1. So I've got the breakdown here, x minus 1, x plus 1, x minus I, x plus I, as I break down my factors. Okay, you okay with where I am to there? Okay, now Remember, I've got x is equals 0, x minus 1 equals 0, x plus 1 equals 0, x minus I equals 0, x minus I equals 0, and x plus I equals 0, if I can get that in. Let's move everything over so I can. So I've got my values, 0, 1, negative 1, I, negative I. Is my possible zeros of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got 5 zeros as we're going through. Follow up with questions at all. Okay. When I'm doing stuff like this in 5, it makes it easier. I can start seeing some things. Maybe I can do a unfoil, you know, for lack of better terminology, the factor my trinomial after I factor out x. But you know something? It doesn't work real well sometimes, and I've got to do completing the square. So just on my x squared plus 6x minus 2, I'm going to complete the square to find out what my value of x. I already know that one of my x's is 0. That's that one. Okay, let me talk about or find the other one. So I've got x squared plus 6x plus something, 9, because half of 6 is 3, squared is 9, equals positive 2. Okay, but I got to add 9 to the other side as well, right? Because whatever I add or introduce the problem that wasn't originally there, I have to subtract out. And the reason I'm doing this is I'm looking for the zeros of x, and I'm using the completing the square method. So remember, this is half of my b, half of 6 squared. That's where the 9 came from. And I got to add it to both, okay? Now, after I get that done, I have x plus 3 squared equal 11. And I take the square root of both sides. X plus 3 is equal to plus or minus square root of 11. And so x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 11. So that's my other 2 zeros on this problem. So my final zeros should be 0 and negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 11. And or you can stretch it out like this if you'd like. Questions about problem 5 as we go through. Now, some of my favorite problems are factor problems. Okay, I just like doing them. Okay, maybe perhaps when I was you, it was because they would just throw us 100 problems. Okay, get this done before the end of class. Okay, just do it. Okay. So now like, ooh, that's a lot. You should maybe just do 4. Okay. Questions concerning this one at all before we get to the next one? Now, in the next one, it's x to the 5th, I think. What is it? Yeah, x to the 5th. As you're looking at it, you can put it in your calculator, totally give yourself ideas about where to start. But when I was doing it earlier, I was just looking at, you know, I got 34 is my a naught, and my a is 1. So 34 has factors of 1, 2, 17, and 34. So I got plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 17, plus or minus 34. I ain't trying 34, okay? And I don't know why I have this answer over here, so let's just get rid of that. That is one of the final answers. I just don't know why I put it up there, okay? But check your graph. That's why I got graph, okay? Because you're going to be taking a test. You're going to be armed with your calculator, okay? See how fast you can pull it up and pop it in. But I decided to try 2, I think, right off the bat, and it was a negative 2. And here's why. Some people go, why did you choose negative? Every one of my terms was positive, and I was pretty confident because 34 was positive, I mean even, that 2 would work. But I used negative 2 because I need to knock it out. I need to have a negative value, and that's why I chose to do this one without even checking my calculator. Okay, I knew negative 2 had to be one of them. At least, you know, that was my inkling. So I dropped my 1. I got negative 2, I get 8. I get negative 16, I get 17, and I've got negative 34, which is 0, okay, as I go through that. And now I've got this really I thought that was the fifth. It's just the third. So now I got x squared, 8x, and 17. Okay. Well, can you think of a number that two numbers that multiply to 17 and add to be 8? I mean, I can think about 18 and 7, 2 and 9, but I got to complete the square. Okay. So I know right now that one of my factors is x plus 2. One of my zeros is x is equal to -2. But now the completing the square. And I might do this one a little bit funkier than what you guys are used to. And I do it because it's a little bit cleaner and easier for me. So watch what I'm going to do. I already know that x squared plus 8x plus 17 is something I'm going to look for a 0. Okay? So what's half of 8? 4, so I square that at 16. Isn't 16 already kind of in 17? I just pull 1 out. Okay, so I'm going to pull the 1 out because I already know that I'm going to have 16. It's already there. I'm going to kick that 1 over to the other side. If I subtract 1 from both sides, I get 16. My perfect square is there. Okay, now some people go, well, Bloom, didn't you like subtract 17 from both sides and then add in the 16? I go, yeah, I did, but I did it a little different way. Do you see it? Because -17 plus 16 is still -1. Okay, I just saw that 17 is 16 plus 1, so I got the 1 over there. And that's what I did. I subtracted 1 versus the whole kit and caboodle. Okay, so it's just a little bit different way of doing it, but it allows me to do it faster in my head. So I've got x plus 4 quantity squared. Now remember, this is plus or minus the square root of -1. Excuse me. I'm not there with the square root yet. I'm jumping the gun. I got -1. Okay, now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Okay, so I've got x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus I. Are you okay with that? Okay, now I pop that 4, my y looking 4, over. So I got x equals -4 plus or minus I. Now, please be advised, there should be care taken to make sure you collect up all your zeros. Okay, they're laying across your problem, and it's not just this one, but it's also that -2. So we got those zeros down here, and we should have had those zeros down here. I'm looking at x is equal to -2, and x is -4 plus I, and -4 minus I. Are we okay with where my zeros came from? And I'm collecting them up. They asked me to keep them together, and I got them there. Now, you may choose to use the quadratic formula if you'd like. I just really prefer that completing the square. And do you notice how many times we're using it now? Again. So that's why on my next elk time, I'm going to be covering completing the square, writing vertex form, using completing the square, and then creating polynomials from other polynomials and given zeros. And we're going to factor them as well. The purpose of this is just to practice using completing the squares as we do this stuff. Okay. Now, 7. Let's get after that one. Now remember, I got 100, I got 29, 4 times 5, 25 is 100, 4 plus 25 is 29, so life becomes a little easier if I look at it that way. Okay? My daughter gets driven crazy when I look at something and she goes, how did you do that fast? It's like, it's what I do every day. It's factoring numbers under 225. Okay? I mean, think about it. If you do something consistently the same way all the time and you just keep practicing, you become faster with it. But remember, I ain't done, okay? Because I'm looking for zeros. Right now, I know some stuff about this function. It's always positive. It's never negative, okay? And how I know it's never negative is I'm going to be talking about the fact that it does not cross or even touch an axis. Okay, I don't have anything that bounces or comes in tangent with it. And I'm going to look at, I've got x plus or x minus 5, okay? And people are like, well, where's that? But it's I, right? X minus 5i, x plus 5i, and just double check. I mean, it's the difference of two squares. So I've got my x squared. My inside-outside terms are bye-bye. Okay, that's our technical term for it. Inside-outside terms should be bye-bye. And then negative 5 times 5 is negative 25, but I squared. So that's where I get plus 25. And that same idea will extend itself to x minus 2i and x plus 2i. Okay, so now I'm looking at this idea of zero product rule, and when's it going to be zero? And my x's are, for that one, I got 5i, I got negative 5i, I got 2i, and I got negative 2i. And I have 4 zeros. I would expect 4 zeros, and then I'd have no multiplicity with those because I have my highest order is 4. Are you okay with the factoring? Are there any follow-ups with factoring? Okay, now we got 2 warm-ups. This, I know people say day 2. This is where we were supposed to start today. Can you imagine getting all that information into you with the start of today and yesterday? That's why we split it, okay? You'll also notice that my assignment for day 3 here, Friday's assignment, is the same as day 2 assignment. Do you see that? Pretty fun, right? You'll be able to start the assignment, but you won't be able to finish it because I will not have covered all the notes for today, okay? So just keep in mind, people are like, oh, he's expecting so much. No, I just have 2 days on that one assignment, okay? So just keep that in mind. Your next thing, go after your warm-up. And I don't know what I did with this. I think I freelanced this bad boy, so we're just going to get these out of here. Go ahead and get that done. And again, every one of these, fair game for a test question as we go through. No idea what I'm doing with that. Every one of these, fair game for test questions. Reason why we're doing so many, I need to make sure you guys are very efficient with this factoring stuff. Be able to do it quickly. Because the more efficient you are with them, the better it will be for you completing them in a timely manner on the test. Now I'm supposed to find the zeros on this one. Okay, possible factors. 29 and 1. Ain't trying 29. They're all positive. I'm going to try negative 1. Okay, that's the one I'm going to try. Just not even looking at my calculator, I got a possible rational factors from the list. A naught over A, the leading term, A naught my y-intercept, okay? And I got 29 over 1, plus or minus. So I have either plus or minus 1 or plus or minus 29. The reason why I picked negative 1 is every one of my terms is adding something. I need to be able to add something so it becomes 0. In order to do that, it's got to be a different sign. That's why I chose negative 1 without even looking at my calculator, okay? Because if it's got a rational number, it's going to be 1, okay? So I dropped my 1. I got negative 1. I got 10. I got negative 10. Hey, I got 29. Now I got negative 29, and it's 0, okay? Fantastic deal going on here. But now I got x squared 10x plus 29. And I can't come up with a value that adds the 10 and multiplies the 29 where both signs are positive. Notice how that has to be? Both signs have to be positive because when I multiply them, they're positive, but when I add them, they're positive as well. It's possible that I could have different signs and add to be positive 10, but when I multiply, so at this point, I got to complete the square. Okay, but remember, I already have a 0 up there. I've got that one going on, so I don't want to forget that in my problem's solution. So now, x squared plus 10x, half of 10 is 5, squaring it is 25. So I'm adding 25, but really taking 25 away from 29 and kicking that rest over there, right? So I got -4 over there. Okay, are you okay with what I did with that? Some people think that's magic. I don't want it to be, but it helps as I go through it to think, all right, normally I would make it look like this. So this is an aside, okay, closet scene if I'm acting or whatever. But I've got x squared plus 10x. Okay, I got that 25 I filled in, but you remember I put that 29 over there and I got to add 25? That's still -4, okay, and it's still 25. So because this takes longer, I'm not going to do that anymore if I can avoid it. Okay, now I've got x plus 5 squared equals -4. I take the square root of both sides. X plus 5 squared, yeah. X plus 5 is equal to plus or minus I, the square root of 4, by the way, is 2. So I'm just going to say 2i. Are you okay with where I'm going right now? Now I just solve for x, and I've got my x is equal to -5 plus or minus 2i. So I got to list my list of zeros. X is equal to -1 and -5 plus or minus 2i. Okay, if I wanted to show you as factors, I'll take that list out and show you as factors this way. So I got my factors going on so you can see what's happening with them when I put it across. Questions? Feeling comfortable with these? Now, I always have people say, oh, you know, these examples are really hard, they're different. This is more like the test, these examples, than anything else we've been doing. Okay, make sure you recognize we're doing a lot of them. We do a lot of hits of examples. We're making sure you're factoring, we're making sure you know where your zeros are. We're also having you complete the square, okay, on these examples. Make sure you recognize completing the square is a useful time-saving skill versus quadratic formula. Quad formula will work, it will, okay, but we're still completing the square, we're still getting it done. Okay, now this next one, let's talk about this next one. I'm popping this puppy into the calculator, but I do have a sneaky suspicion because it's 32, 1 and 32, 2 and 16, 4 and 8, right? They're all there, plus or minus, but I'm feeling 2s. I'm feeling 2's going to be happening a lot, almost like, you know, there's 3 of them, okay? And again, on this one, I've got negative and positive, so I'm pretty happy. So I got my list going on in here, the list I just generated in my head. I'm going to use 2 and see where it goes, okay? And see if I can just clean them out. But if I look at my picture, you'll see what it looks like in the picture as we go as well. Using your calculator will help you find the things you put in for your synthetic division. I expect you to show synthetic. And if you're asked, hey, show that these zeros are factors, the way you can do it are you put it in this factor and multiply them and expand it, or you do it as a synthetic division to show that they are factors and they, you know, have a result of 0. Okay, or I suppose you can use remainder theorem to help you if your answer is 0, it's also a factor. But as I'm going through, I've got 1. None of these worked. Okay, and I multiply by 2 and I got -6 and it's going too slow. So I've got 2 at -6. I got -12 and now I've got 16. I've got 32. Okay, I think I got 32. That looks like 32. 2, -6, -12, positive 16. Good, positive 32. So I got 24. And it's negative, so I got -48. And I got positive 16. And I've got positive 32. And I got my 0. Whew. Okay, so it worked. Now, my other choice, as I'm going through, I had checked my graph and I've said, you know, two happens a few times. I'm just going to go exhaustively through it. So I've got my next, I drop my 1, multiply by 2, I get -4, multiply by 2, I get -8 with an 8 result. I got 16 again with another 8 result, and I got another 16, but it's negative, so it's 0 again. Well, I'm going to try 2's again. Okay, because when I looked at the graph, it passed through and it looked like a cubic, right? As it went across. So it not only crossed, but it crossed in a cubic look. So that kind of gave me the idea it happened 3 times. So I'm going to do my next one. I got 1 down, pop up by 2, got -2, -4, got a 4, +8, and I got 0. Now I've got, again, x squared minus 2x plus 4 there. Okay, it's not 4 and 1. No, I do. I do and I don't. So can I just deliver that down to you guys or not? So I know we're really sad because I didn't collect today at all, but we'll have more tomorrow. Oh, wait.
Yeah, we're coming back tomorrow.
Okay, good. Okay, so we'll collect tomorrow. I'll put it right in here. Okay, are you okay with the fact that I'm sitting here at x squared minus 2x plus 4? And now, how have we been doing this? Half of 2, 1, I've got to complete the square. So, in completing the square on this one, remember that equals 0. If I go x squared minus 2x, now half of 2 is 1, squared is 1, plus 1, so I'm going to kick -3 over there. So -3. And now I find my difference. I'm just going to do it in this space because that's all I got. X minus 1 quantity squared equal -3. And now I take the square root of both sides. Got x minus 1 equals plus or minus. I'm going to put the I in front so you can see that I'm using imaginaries, but the square root of 3 is in there. If I put it afterwards, it looks like the I is underneath that square root, and that's why I'm putting it on the front side. So now one of my factors is 1 plus or minus I the square root of 3, or 2 factors, 1 plus or minus plus the I the square root of 3, 1 minus the square root of 3I, and then I can write them out this way if I need to. With my zeros, that way. Now I got a multiplicity of 3 on that 2. And I just keep track of that because I got 5 on this one. Okay, so 2 happened 5 times. And that 1 plus or minus twice, so I got 5 total zeros. So I found them all, I have them all listed, so I keep track of the zeros I'm supposed to leave in my solution and my answer. Okay. No, it's quick. Let's talk about that test that you all have. Hopefully the assignment will go well for you. It's posted. Day 2 is over, can be done over today, Thursday, and Friday. So I hope things go well.